Over the years that I've played Pokemon, I've played through many games and used a lot of different Pokemon on my teams. This video, I will go over all my teams and rate them on a scale of 1 through 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Starting with Gen 1, I played Red version. Before I announce the team members though, I would like to say that my Pokemon journey didn't start in Gen 1. My first Pokemon game was actually Pokemon Sword when I got a Nintendo Switch for my 13th birthday. I know it's a bit late, seeing how I'm now still in high school, but I had previous knowledge about Pokemon even before I got a Switch, since I watched the anime as well as many YouTubers. Anyway, let's move on to the team members. My Pokemon Red version team was Toast the Charizard, Arrow the Pidgeot, Warrior the Nidoking, Seedling the Vileplume, Big Dig the Dugtrio, of which I got in Diglett's Cave, and Waterboy the Vaporeon, of which I evolved the gift Eevee in Celadon City using a Water Stone. In my opinion, this team is a 7 out of 10. The reason for this is mainly because of Dugtrio not having the best stats, and therefore leaving me not to use him as much. The other less important reason is for my team not having Victory Bell on it. Because I played Red version, I wasn't able to catch any Blue version exclusives like Bellsprout, Vulpix, and Sandshrew, and I instead had to rely on Vileplume as my grass type. This is unfortunate because I really like Victory Bell, it being one of my favorite Pokemon, and that Victory Bell stats are more spread out than Vileplume's. Even though these two Pokemon are nearly identical from the shared evolution level and method, and even the base stat total, I still can't get over the speed stat of 50 on Vileplume compared to the 70 on Victory Bell. Moving on to Gen 2, I played Crystal version, my team being Atlas the Typhlosion, Quap the Quagsire, Batman the Crobat, Shino the Heracross, Ziff the Espeon, and Treebe the Sudowoodo. Let's get straight to the point, this team sucks. Now, I know Johto is known for having weaker Pokemon compared to the other regions, and that I didn't have much to work with, but with two Pokemon with less than a 450 base stat total, the full outcome of the team isn't going to be the greatest. You may be thinking now, oh, why didn't you use like an Ampharos or a Steelix? They have pretty good stats and are pretty strong. Well, I didn't know how to obtain a Steelix or any other traded Pokemon, or Pokemon that evolved from trade. Since I was using the Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console to play the older games, I just assumed that I couldn't get those Pokemon because the Nintendo 3DS Online shut down, and that no one I knew played those games. And for why I didn't use an Ampharos, well, none of them are repline or even in Crystal. For whatever reason, Nintendo removed Mareep, Flaffy, and Ampharos from the game, even though there are 3 out of the 8 Johto Electric types, 2 also being baby Pokemon and 1 being a legendary. The reason I didn't use any previous Gen 1 Pokemon was because I wanted to use the region's native Pokemon. Anyway, I rate this team a 4 out of 10. Even though I like each team member, the weird level curves and ridiculous methods for obtaining certain Pokemon made getting them a hassle, and led to me spending literal hours trying to get enough friendship to evolve. Now for Gen 3 and 4, I'm sorry to say this, but I haven't played a single Gen 3 or 4 game. Now, that must be disappointing, but those GBA games are pricey, and I'm only in high school. I don't want to spend ridiculous amounts of money on older Pokemon games when I can just play the newer, cheaper ones. Okay, now for Gen 5. Unlike Gen 3 and 4, I have actually played a Gen 5 game, being White 2. For the team, I used Aquaman the Samurott, Blitz the Darmanitan, Peach the Lilligant, Valdez the Crocodile, Jello the Reuniclus, and Mana the Eelektross. I love this team. Not only does every Pokemon on this team have a base stat total of 480 or more, as well as 0 type overlaps, but they are all Pokemon that I genuinely like. I give this team a 10 out of 10. If you haven't played this game before, I recommend it if you have the time and money because it's pretty pricey. Also, I really like the way that Eelektross sprite flaps around on its flippers in battle. Time for Gen 6. The Gen 6 games I've played are Pokemon Y and Omega Ruby. Starting with Y, my team was Leaper the Greninja, Hot Wings the Talonflame, Lettuce the Venusaur, which can Mega Evolve, Meta Knight the Gallade, Snowplow the Aurorus, and Aegis the Aegislash. In my opinion, this team is a solid 9 out of 10. Even though there is 0 type overlap and all Pokemon on this team have high stats, I wish that instead of choosing Bulbasaur for my second starter, I chose Charmander, because I simply like Charizard more as a Pokemon, and its Mega Evolutions are really cool. Another reason why I think I should have chosen Charmander instead of Bulbasaur is because during the endgame, I didn't use Venusaur much. The Elite Four in Kalos consists of Fire, Steel, Dragon, and Water, 3 of the 4 being types that Charizard can easily deal with. One thing to note that I'm still salty to this day is that Lettuce the Venusaur probably hit 2 Poison Powders out through the whole playthrough, as well as missing many of his attacks, which almost cost the team a few losses. For Omega Ruby, my team consisted of Blade the Sceptile, Firebender the Camerupt, Skewer the Sharpedo, Soars the Swallow, Sparky the Manectric, and Macket the in-game trade Makuhita, which I evolved into a Hariyama. This game was my first Pokemon game on the 3DS, and I think the team I used was pretty solid. There was no type overlaps, the team had good coverage, and they were all Pokemon that I enjoyed using and made my experience with the game even better. Overall, I think this team is a 10 out of 10. The team is very special to me, and I still think about how Maka the Hariyama swept the Elite Four with Belly Drum. The Gen 7 games I played were Pokemon Sun and Ultra Sun. For Sun, my team was Inferno the Incineroar, Toucan Sam the Toucanon, Squirm the Golisopod, Lawnmower the Lurantis, Truffle the Beware, and Valor the in-game trade Alolan Golem. All the Pokemon in this team are great, especially Valor the Alolan Golem. Since traded Pokemon gain XP faster than caught ones, Valor was a huge help getting through the tough battles like the Elite Four across the Alola region. Even though I really liked this team, the Alola games weren't my favorite, and I had some trouble figuring out which Pokemon to put on my team. Truffle the Beware almost wasn't on the team because I had actually found a shiny Fearow. And yes, that is a shiny Fearow. I had just gotten to Ula Ula Island, and one of the first encounters I had there was a shiny Fearow. The reason it got replaced by Beware, however, was because I realized that Fearow kinda sucks, and I wanted something stronger on my team. Overall, I'm going to give this team a 7 out of 10. Moving on to my second Gen 7 game, Ultra Sun. My team was Quiver the Decidueye, Arson 2 the Alolan Marowak, Zip Zap the Vikavolt, Poizo the Toxapex, Quake the Mudstale, and Frosty the Alolan Ninetales. I really like this team. In fact, it's one of my favorites on the list. It was really fun using the Alolan Pokemon that I didn't use in my Sun playthrough, and even though the playthrough of Ultra Sun was a bit boring, seeing that it's nearly the exact same as normal Sun, the team was still really good, and I definitely recommend using any of the Pokemon on this team. I would like to mention one thing about the Vikavolt on this team. Actually, every Vikavolt. For some reason, Game Freak decided to make Vikavolt extremely slow. Like, this Pokemon is said to weave between trees with its exceptional mobility, while having a speed set of 43. Other than that, I give this team a 9 out of 10. Now I know that there's Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee still in Gen 7, but I haven't completed those games yet, and therefore can't give an accurate rating due to having unevolved Pokemon. So for now, I'm just going to skip these games. On to Gen 8, my first ever Pokemon game, Pokemon Sword. My team being Cyclone the Inteleon, Sizzler the Centiskorch, Comet the Corviknight, Amp the Toxtricity, Checkers the Grimmsnarl, and Titan the Haxorus. Now, if you think this team isn't getting a 10 out of 10 from me, you're crazy. This was my first ever Pokemon team. Of course it's getting a 10 out of 10. The only slightly negative thing that I have against this team is the use of Haxorus. If you were listening when I was talking about my other teams, you may have realized that I used Pokemon specifically to the region where the game takes place. Since Haxorus first appeared in Gen 5, I kinda broke that rule, but it gets a pass because it was the first ever Pokemon game I played. And I know that many people dislike Sword and Shield because of the story and graphics and whatnot, but people also criticized Gen 5 when it first came out. And I think in a few years, when people get nostalgic for Sword and Shield, the criticism it gets now will fade away. Anyway, even with Haxorus on the team, it's still at a 10 out of 10. Using these Pokemon on my team made me like the game even more, and out of all my teams, this is definitely my favorite one. For my second Gen 8 game, Pokemon Legends Arceus, unfortunately, I don't know the exact team because I swap members out of my party for new ones pretty often. The only members I remember using against Volo, though, are Ghost of Hisuian Typhlosion, a Staraptor, a Luxray, and an Alpha Garchomp. The last three, I don't even remember if they had nicknames or not. Since I don't remember half the team members, I can't give this team an accurate rating, but I will say that even with the Alpha Garchomp and my other powerful team members, Volo still beat me many times. I'm just gonna say it right now, I think that Volo is way harder than Cynthia. With basically 8 Pokemon, 2 being Giratina, I spent way longer trying to beat Volo than Cynthia. My third Gen 8 game was Brilliant Diamond. My team was Infernape, Luxray, Staraptor, Roserade, Gastrodon, and Cobalt the shiny Dialga. Yes, it is legit, and yes, I did spend 40 hours looking for it. Even though this team is pretty standard for a Sinnoh playthrough, I still really like this team. Except Luxray. I hate this Luxray because it did something so horrible that it could make a grown man cry. You wanna know the answer? Killing a shiny Azelf that I spent 50 hours looking for. No joke, 40% of my time spent on Brilliant Diamond was hunting for this thing, and when it finally appeared, this Luxray crit OHKO'd it with a discharge. I like to blame BDSP's friendship mechanics for this as well. After my poor eyes witnessed the murder of a full-odd shiny Azelf, especially in BDSP where it takes like a minute for one encounter, the game had the nerve to say, Luxray hit a critical hit, wishing to be praised. What? My guy, you're not gonna be praised, you're gonna be days after I'm hit fist hit your... Anyway, I give this team a 7 out of 10. I would also like to note that Cynthia and the Elite Four for me weren't that difficult. It may be from my usage of a legendary, but most of the complaints I've heard about this game were about the Elite Four and Champion being impossibly difficult. I think the only trouble I had when fighting the final bosses was when Flint's Drifloon setup minimized a few times. Finally, Gen 9. The game I played was Pokemon Scarlet. My team was Komodo the Skeledirge, Salt the Garganical, Dozo the Dondozo, Basher the Tinkaton, Heatwave the Armarouge, and lastly Chien-Pao, which did not have a nickname. I rate this team a solid 8 out of 10. All of the Pokemon I used were very good in battle, and even though there's still a Fire-type overlap, the team was still fun to play with. The type overlap reason was because of myself choosing Fuecoco as my starter since I thought the other two were boring, and myself also wanting to use Armarouge because it immediately caught my attention after it first appeared in an announcement before the game came out. Throughout all my teams in different games, I think I did a pretty solid job choosing which Pokemon to use. I mainly chose the Pokemon I liked more rather than it being strong or not because I wanted to have a fun time playing the game, which explains some of the type overlaps or yet legendary usage. Anyway, how well do you think I did throughout my playthroughs? It would be nice if you were to leave a comment down below and tell me about all your teams. So long, and thanks for watching.